lot about what we have to say, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just reality. Your opinion is valuable. Your words are important, but your words and your opinions are not more important than the person or group you are communicating with. Do you want to know one thing that will help you greatly overcome your fear of communicating to groups of people? It's pretty simple, actually. Stop thinking about what people are going to think about you and start thinking about the value you can bring to those who are listening. In other words, it's not about you, it's about them. Make it your mission to help people. If you are in communication with an individual, become fanatical about unlocking something hidden inside of them. I don't want that to sound dramatic. I honestly believe there is greatness hidden inside of everyone. Greatness is hidden inside my wife. Greatness is hidden inside my kids. Greatness is hidden inside you. I began to ask myself a few important questions. The first question is, do I believe that greatness is hidden inside of each person? I can truthfully say the answer to that question is yes. The next question is, do I believe that I can assist that greatness to be unleashed in them? The answer to that question is yes as well. So I believe there is greatness inside of everyone. I believe that I can help pull that out of each person. The real question is how. How can you and I pull greatness out of everyone we meet? Are people going to be changed because of listening to me talk? Maybe. Are people going to be awakened by hearing me share my opinion? Maybe, but doubtful. I truly believe that people don't need to be convinced of many things, they need to be awakened. If you're talked into something, you can be talked out of it. I don't want to use my communication skills to convince someone of anything. That's why I don't engage in Facebook debates. They're pointless. I don't want to change your mind. I don't want to convince you. My job is not to awaken you to think like me. My job is to help you to be awakened to the understanding that there is greatness inside of you and that there is something inside of you that the world needs. What awakens us? I think we are awakened when we start to believe. We're awakened when we stop fearing the worst. We're awakened when we believe change is possible. What does it have to do with you and me? What if you made it your mission every single day to communicate life to those you came in contact with? Your Starbucks barista, your dry cleaner, your lazy coworker, your spouse and kids. What if life wasn't all about me? What if life was about serving whoever I'm in relationship with? What if my mission was to awaken? I don't want to awaken you to think like me. I want to awaken others to believe in something. Life is so much better when we are on mission. Your mission is probably different than mine. We all have a mission. What's yours? What makes you tick? That's what I want to help awaken on each person. Most people don't know what makes them tick. They don't know what makes them come alive. When we don't know what makes us come alive, it's easy to get bogged down in the day-to-day cares of a stressful and difficult life. You know, there's two words that I think we sometimes use in the wrong way, and they're very powerful, but the way we use these words is oftentimes the opposite effect. And those two words are what if. We use what if in a negative sense a lot. You know, a lot of times people daydream in the shower, and you start to imagine, you start to say, man, what if I could be full-time with this business? What if I can, and that's what we do a lot as business coaches. We want to help people to use the words what if. The problem is we use what if in all the wrong ways. What if people cancel their Premier orders? What if this ED doesn't get back to ED this month? We start using the power of what if in all the negative ways instead of using what if for what it could potentially be to help us dream and look forward to inspire. One of my favorite movies that came out with this past year is The Greatest Showman. I love that movie. I've seen it like 6 times. I mean, seriously, it's awesome. And in this movie, the character buys this museum. And if you haven't seen this movie, I don't even care that I'm spoiling it for you, right? Because it's your problem for not seeing it. So he has this museum, and there's a bunch of dead things in this museum, and no one's coming to the museum. And he's putting his daughters to bed one night, and they say to him, hey, you need more alive things in the museum. People want to see things that are alive. And then they go into this song, and it's my favorite song. And don't sing it, please. I know that's what's going to happen. People just start singing. But I just want to read you a small line from this song. It says, you stumble through your days, got your head hung low, your sky is a shade of gray. Like a zombie in a maze, you're asleep inside, but you can shake awake. Because you're just like a dead man walking, thinking that's your only option, but you can flip the switch and brighten up your darkest day. Sun is up and the color's blinding. Take the world and redefine it. Leave behind your narrow mind and never be the same. Come alive. Yeah. Would you want to communicate that to your coaches?
Yeah.
You want to look into a Zoom with a coach and be able to inspire them to truly come alive. You know, for all of us, the truth is that whatever we obsess about will eventually become our reality. The problem for a lot of us is that we obsess about the wrong things. What is your obsession? My wife is not here with me because my daughter broke her arm last week and had surgery on Tuesday. And that was a miserable experience, you know, for her, but I mean, for me, I'm not someone that handles pain really well. I can't watch MMA because I can't stand watching people get pummeled. Like, there's just something about it. I just have a hard time with that. And she comes out of anesthesia and she's just a mess. I mean, she doesn't know where she is. She doesn't know who these people are that are with her. Her arm is just throbbing. And she is just, for 20 or 30 minutes, just absolutely inconsolable. I mean, trying to help her to focus on something different. But it's like, you ever had a toothache before? You know, when your tooth aches, you can think about nothing else. Like, your whole thought process is focused on this one thing that you just cannot stop obsessing about. Whatever it is that you constantly obsess about will eventually become your reality. You know, one of the most difficult things that we all do is, if you have kids, is to be a parent. And one of the things I love doing as a parent is catching my kids doing something right. I love catching my kids doing something right. For the longest time, my daughter Addison was petrified of roller coasters. Absolutely petrified of roller coasters. She would look at these roller coasters and she would get afraid. And there was one time, you know, where we finally went on this roller coaster. And she went on and had a great time. You know, the truth is, usually when you go on your first one, you want to go on a bunch of them, and that's exactly what we did. And we went on roller coasters, and afterwards, I pulled her aside, and I looked into her eyes, and I just said, Addison, I am so proud of you for how brave you were today. So proud. Later that night, she was going to bed, and I went in to say goodnight. She had the biggest smile on her face. I said, why are you smiling? Why are you happy? She said, because today you told me I was brave. I'm telling you, the words that you speak into people and into coaches are incredibly valuable. Vulnerable moment. How many of you, now some of you are not going to want to raise your hand to this, but you know you need to. How many of you often struggle with this thought? I'm failing as a business coach. Represented in this room are the top 1% of coaches in Optavia. If you feel like you're failing, what are your coaches feeling? If you feel like something's not going right, if you feel like this isn't going well, if you feel that this is falling apart, what are your coaches feeling? Right? The vast majority of coaches in Optavia would trade businesses with you in a heartbeat, wouldn't they? But yet that same vast majority think that they are failing as coaches and as people. Why do clients not want to get on the phone with their coaches? Because no one likes to share bad news. Nobody wants to be someone that picks up the phone, and that's why a lot of times what happens when coaches get screened by their clients, I'm not saying always that we should assume the worst, but listen, we all love sharing good news, right? Some of you can't stop sharing good news. You can't wait. It's like you got a secret pent up inside and you can't wait to share it. But you don't like sharing bad news. So if you got coaches that are just having a tough time and they're having a tough time moving forward, they feel like they're failing. Now the truth is, they're not in this business for you, but they think they're failing you. They think they're failing themselves. They think they're failing their kids, their why, their mission. It's up to us to help pull greatness out of them. You know, we had our team time last night, and Pat Schatzline was sharing, and I was so impressed with this. In the middle of him sharing, he stopped and looked into every one of the coaches in that room and began to speak encouragement into them. And he began to look at them and say, you know what, this is what I see in you. This is what you bring to the table. And you know what? The mood shifted entirely in the room after that. Because when you communicate life into someone else, it makes them want to go run through a wall. You ever asked this question before? I've learned in my business to stop asking open-ended questions, because if I ask open-ended questions, it drifts negative in a hurry. You ever ask this question? Hey, how's your business going? If you ask someone how's your business going, you know what you're going to hear pretty soon? Oh, so-and-so canceled their premiere last week. There's one person, I'm not sure they're going to get back to senior coach. Same thing happens when you ask someone how their program went the following week. Because we live in a world where, it's kind of like we're on an escalator that's going up, or we're trying to go up on an escalator that's going down. You ever do that? Like if you fail to quit moving forward, that escalator is going to pull you back really, really quickly. That's kind of the way life is. We just, we drift to negativity. We drift below the line really, really quickly. And so this is why we ask pointed questions. Because if you ask open-ended questions, your coaches will take it negatively quickly. And so that's important for us to get on Zooms, and John Michael Kilpatrick does this so well. And when you get on this Zoom and this person that you're talking with is earning $400 a month or whatever it is, and you be able to jump on that phone call and say, remember when you wanted to earn $400? Remember when you first started coaching and you told me how much you couldn't wait to earn $400 to earn enough money to pay for your program? And you earned how much last month? Are you kidding me? Isn't it amazing how quickly we can go from being grateful for making $2,000 a month and disappointed that we made 10 or whatever it is? We can go so fast from being grateful to being afraid that it's all going to go away. So we have a lot of work to do when it comes to being the leader that trains other leaders. I know that I certainly do too. Being someone that's really good at training leaders, that might not happen in the next 3 months. It could happen in the next 3 years, though. One of my favorite movies is Patch Adams. Love the movie Patch Adams, and in this movie, Patch kind of voluntarily checks himself into a psych ward because he's having some difficulties in finding his purpose in life. And there's like a guy in the movie that is like a genius, and he gets frustrated with people because he would always hold 4 fingers up in front, and he would tell people and ask them, how many fingers am I holding up? And he would get frustrated because everybody would say 4. And so finally they tried to get him by, and they said, what's the right answer? And he said, the reason that you keep seeing 4 fingers is you're looking at what's in front of you. You're not looking beyond it. If you look beyond the 4 fingers, how many do you see? And he said, 8. Because when you focus on what's on the other side of the problem, then it becomes a whole lot different what you're actually looking at. We got to learn how to look through the obstacle. So let's look at your organization for a second. I want to share in the next few minutes some hard truths that you may not want to hear, but it will make you better, I promise. We just got done learning from Terry and Dan about looking at our business and amazing, and learning how to build and grow EDs and how many EDs we're going to need to be able to get to where we want to be, and all of that stuff. So what's really helped me is learning how to write out my entire business on a whiteboard or a large Post-it note or something, writing out my business in its entirety in terms of where each of my legs, and then circling where the leaders are. Not the ranks, the leaders. Where are the leaders? And then asking myself this question, if I were to go away for 3 months, would those legs grow or go away? If they go away, that's because either I haven't found a leader in that leg yet, or it's still a work in progress. You know what I've had to realize? I should not be surprised when I don't have leaders stepping up if I never give anyone else an opportunity to lead. If you want to learn how to develop more leaders, stop making yourself the star of the show. If you make yourself the star of the show, you are never going to learn how to give other people a chance to rise to the surface. What if one of the major purposes of team trainings, and Megan's going to talk about this in a few minutes, what if one of the main purposes of team trainings wasn't to train your teams at all, but to build community and train leaders? We got amazing systems to teach new coaches how to get on, how to start 3-way conversations and how to do Facebook. That's honestly, when we do our team trainings, yeah, we're teaching that stuff, but that's not the real reason we're doing team trainings. I'm not saying why you're doing it, I'm saying why I'm doing it. The reason I'm doing team trainings, 2 reasons. Build community, train leaders, period. And so we want to learn how to resist the temptation. I was so bad at this. When I go to events, I was that person that wanted to make sure everybody was taken care of at every event. I was the event babysitter. Resist the temptation to always have to take care of everyone at every event. You know what I've learned? If you have a coach that can't get out of their shell and meet other people in this room, they have no chance to build this business. If you feel that you have to help make sure that everybody is taken care of at convention, and you got to make sure that everybody knows where everybody's eating, and everybody knows where everybody's sitting, and we're trying to save seats for everybody because we don't want anybody to be alone. Listen, if your people can't get out of their shell to meet people at an Optavia convention where everyone loves them, they get no chance to build their business. You know how to handle people? I've learned this. You know how to handle people, because we all got this. You got people in your organization that all they want is attention. You know how to handle people in life that just want attention? Just don't give them attention. There's some people that's all they want. They just want attention for all the negative reasons. People that just want attention, just don't give them attention. So if my primary purpose for building this business is getting recognized by your mentorship team, you're missing it. Some of us, we get to that rank and we just sit there and we watch Facebook, wondering when our coaches are going to celebrate us. I don't know if they knew this, but I hit a new rank 25 minutes ago. I'm just going to keep refreshing and wait for the notifications to come through, and then we get offended when it doesn't. You know what I've learned? That nobody runs a marathon and thinks about how fast the sprinters are running. When you run a marathon, you're not thinking about how fast the sprinters are running, right? And we want to ask this question. When it comes to building leaders, are we running a marathon or are we running a sprint? It's easy in sprints to look aside and look and see how fast everybody else is running. You know, when you're running a marathon, you're not racing to see who gets first. You're racing to see who can finish. Period. So learn that we are on a race, but it's not the race that we think. We're not running a 100-yard dash. We're running a marathon. And so it's important for us to realize this, but it's also important for your coaches to help them to get out of comparative reality and to get their eyes shifted back to their purpose. Now, this isn't meant to make anybody feel badly about their business. It's meant to help us see that the problems we have are good, not bad. Our problems always rest with us, and there's so much freedom in that because you can change you. You can't make them do anything, nor should you want to. Because again, anybody that you talk into something can be talked out of it and they won't stick around long. So, this is basic stuff. What do you want? Why do you want it? When do you want it to happen? For your business, for your life. What do you want? When do you want it? And what do you want? Why do you want it? When do you want it to happen? I was listening to a podcast that I just love this guy. His name's Ed Milet, and he talked about this. He said, life kind of goes in cycles. He said, you want to discover your purpose. And when you discover your purpose, you're going to run into problems. And when you solve those problems, you're going to find happiness. Do you know what that means? If you find problems in your organization, don't be upset when you have problems because people make a lot of money when they help people solve problems. I was reading a book recently, and it told a story about a guy named Angel Decker. Angel Decker is the CEO of a shoe company called Creatively Deckers. And it's a $1 billion shoe company, and Angel Decker was born in 1955, and he was born in Cuba, 1955, didn't have anything. His family migrated to the South Bronx, and he was in grade school, had no money, but as a young kid was fascinated with shoes, loved shoes. And all he wanted was to purchase his very first pair of Chuck Taylors by himself. Chuck Taylors at that time cost $6.99, and he had no way of earning money. He was less than 10 years old. And so he went around collecting bottles for 2 cents a piece in order to have the money necessary to go and buy those bottles. When he had half the money raised, one of his aunts saw his quest to raise money for those bottles and said she would help. But he said, I want to raise the money all on my own. So he kept collecting bottles and eventually had enough to go to the store and walk 5 blocks in New York City, in the Bronx, to go buy his first pair of Chuck Taylors. It says that when he went and walked 5 blocks to buy those shoes, he put them on and walked home on the sides of his shoes like this because he didn't want to ruin his shoes. That's why he cared about them so much. Now, the truth is, I started to do the math. How many bottles is it? To come up with that many bottles to buy a $6.99 pair of shoes, it's a lot, right? And I started to think about that in our business. Right? To get the life that you want, and the business that you want, and the income that you want, how many conversations are you going to have to get that? How many coaches are you going to have to sponsor? How many leaders are you going to have to mentor? You know what the best answer to that question is? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Because whatever it takes. One of my favorite shows that's no longer on TV anymore, and a lot of people got frustrated with the show, but I loved it. It was the show Lost. I love Lost. Still don't know what it was all about, but I love the show. And there's a scene in the first season where there's this drug addict named Charlie. And Charlie has just a little bit of his stash left. And he finds this guy that he gives his stash to. His name's John Locke. And John says to Charlie, he says, hey, if you ask me back for these drugs 3 times, I'm going to give them to you. And the second time when Charlie is wanting his drugs back, he goes over to Locke. He says, I want my drugs back. And John pulls him over into the jungle. And he says, I want you to look at this. And he showed him a picture, or he showed him this moth that was in a cocoon. He said, right now, inside this cocoon, this moth is struggling. It's fighting. He said, now I could come by and I can help it. I can take my knife and I can open up the little hole of the cocoon, making it easier for the moth to emerge. But he said, if I did that, the moth would eventually die and be too weak to survive. And he said one thing, he said, struggle is nature's way of strengthening. Some of us feel like it's our mission to make our coaches not struggle, and you are cutting their legs off when you do. Because struggle is nature's way of struggling. I'm not saying we let them struggle. I'm saying we need to let ourselves off the hook to help us realize your job is not to rescue people from struggling. Your job is to help look into their eyes and tell them that the struggle is worth it. I brought these animal crackers the other day. They're terrible, by the way. I bought these because when I was a kid, I was the oldest of 4 boys, and we used to go to the grocery store shopping for groceries, and we'd go to the checkout counter, and there'd be this little box of animal crackers. Back then, they had a little string. And I would always ask my parents if I could have a box of animal crackers, and they always said no. The reason is not because they were bad parents. The reason is we just didn't have any money. We had no money at all. And I walked by these the other day, sitting in a Target checkout counter, and I had this overwhelming thought. And that is because I found this business, and because I've been trained by amazing mentors, and because I've learned how to awaken and inspire leaders, my daughters will never in their life know the struggle of not being able to afford a 75-cent box of animal crackers. And that is something that I have learned and want and love, that I get to experience that for my life. But now my mission is to give that away and to help other people realize that that can be their reality too. So the best way to awaken others is to be awakened to your own mission, as long as that mission is bigger than you. So know what you want, and the best way to get what you want is to learn how to awaken and inspire others to be leaders of leaders. And I am done with 20 seconds to spare. Have a good night, everybody.